Why? Oh, you's a rider. You gon' ride, you gon' sling for them dollar. You won't prime pussy, nigga, no problem.
Hitmen come in all shapes, sizes, and nationalities. They typically charge between $15,000 to $30,000 per contract. Most hits are disguised as murders, so as not to lead a forensic trail back to the money source or the killer. Such was the case in one relatively safe community in broad daylight near Miami Beach, Florida. That morning, the victim, Mrs. LaShante Jones, would have never suspected that she had a hit placed on her life. If she had, she would have avoided carrying out her usual behaviors or traveling with her 2-year-old daughter. At the time of LaShante's death, Miami-Dade County's murder rate was on par with every major American city, except for the downward trend of 2021. Miami-Dade had 249 murders in 2021, a decrease of 41 from 2020, or about a 15% drop. This came surprisingly, as this post-pandemic yielded much higher murder rates not seen in decades. Which is why LaShante's murder in particular stood out on May 3rd, 2021 in Miami-Dade County. Meet Miss Jasmine Martinez, a small-time businesswoman and LaShante's arch-enemy in Miami-Dade County. Jasmine Martinez is the mastermind behind the hit placed on LaShante Jones's life. In the days leading up to LaShante's assassination, Jasmine would visit her bank once a day for a week to withdraw thousands of dollars for what would be the hitman's required payment. Initially, the hitman wanted $20,000 to $25,000, but settled for what Jasmine could pay. Jasmine, who seriously hated LaShante's guts, sat in her living room one sunny afternoon and meticulously counted out stacks of $100 bills as payment for the anticipated snuffing out of her one-time rival for her boyfriend's affections. When Jasmine was sure she had checked every box for a successful hit and an airtight alibi, she communicated to the hitman that everything was a go. Her hitman, Javon Carter, was found, vetted, and given his blessing by Jasmine's current boyfriend, a one Mr. Ramil Robinson, who had met him when they were in jail together. This close to the murder, the hitman and Jasmine maintained a sophisticated messaging system all the way up to the day of the assassination, followed by the payment before the communication all of a sudden went silent. The hitman, Javon Carter, and the financier, Jasmine Jones, got together to surveil LaShante's apartment complex on April 30th and May 1st. Proof of this information would come to light after their arrest as police took hold of their personal cell phones. Now on the cell phones, they found that her address had been surveilled on 2 different times. Perhaps even more heinous than putting a hit out on a woman who was no longer in your boyfriend's life is how Jasmine was able to raise the expendable $10,000 bounty to pay for the hit in the first place. A subsequent investigation would show that the mastermind Jasmine had accomplished it with the help of taxpayer funding. You see, Jasmine had applied for a $15,000 PPP government loan earlier that year, which she had been approved for. The PPP, or Paycheck Protection Program loan she was given, was an SBA-backed loan that helps businesses keep their workforce employed during the COVID-19 crisis. That's right. During the height of COVID-19 pandemic, when the U.S. government was passing out money left and right to help struggling businesses stay afloat, Jasmine was one of the lucky ones who got approved for monies that would keep her beauty parlor afloat. But Jasmine chose to finance the death of a single mother that could do her no harm over salvaging her business. The morning of the hit was scheduled to be Monday the 3rd of May 2021. As many were buying gifts to preparing for Mother's Day weekend, the hitman was preparing for murder. Javon arrived with plenty of time to spare at Coral Bay Cove Apartments. Coral Bay Cove, located at 25801 South Drive Highway in Homestead, Florida, would make the afternoon news for the first homicide in the month of May that year. The killer took special attention to the information he was given on LaShantae's predictable schedule given to him by Jasmine. The hitman pulled his dark gray Nissan in a parallel parking position to LaShantae's apartment building in a northerly direction as he lay in wait for the 24-year-old mother. LaShantay had just completed her 8-hour shift as a transportation security administrator at the Miami International Airport. Now, on the way home, she started to pick up her daughter from the babysitter.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
Because 10 minutes after 3 p.m., LaShantay pulled up in the car, the time and hour that Jasmine had anticipated, and the hitman checked his semi-automatic pistol for the last time. When Jasmine passed the front of his vehicle on the sidewalk to her apartment, that particular 81-degree, partly sunny afternoon, dressed in black hooded sweatshirt and mask, he leapt from his idling car, close distance with LaShantay, who was carrying her daughter in her arms. At this point, LaShantay had no idea what the man to her rear was planning, but her daughter would have had a clear view of what was about to happen. At approximately 3:15 p.m., the hitman pulled out a black semi-automatic pistol and released the entire clip of bullets in the direction of LaShantay and her daughter. One of those rounds was actually able to graze her daughter, who LaShantay was trying to keep safe in her arms. At once, LaShantay, the U.S. Transportation Security Administrator officer and mother of one, was dead, and her injured daughter left to cry at her mother's side. Police were called immediately, and a caring adult would sit with her daughter until police and paramedics would arrive on the scene to transport the girl to a local area hospital. A day after the murder, suspicions would fall upon Jasmine as she was seen as one of LaShantay's biggest enemies in Miami. To throw the suspicions off her back, Jasmine would post on her social media a message of condolence to try and shift the blame off of her back. That post, seen here, states, and I quote, "For the family, instead of playing detective, assassinating people's character, no matter what differences you and another person may have been through in the past, that isn't worth death. I'm a mother before I'm anything, and I'm also a mother who knows the feeling of losing a child. I serve one God, and one God only. He sits high and looks low. Trust and believe Judgment Day is near, and everyone will answer to their sins. My children are hurting more than ever. Instead of me reacting to the opinions of others won't help me to be there for them as I should. My condolences go out to anyone who is grieving the loss of a loved one, and most definitely Shantay, and I pray for her baby girl gets well." Witnesses will report to police that the gunman, who took off in an awaiting vehicle after the assault, was wearing a black hoodie at the time of the shooting. Because no other information was forthcoming, police initially had nothing to go on in solving this case. Now, within hours, news cameras, family members, and neighbors would gather to mourn the loss of a single mother. Jasmine's body would lay under this yellow crime scene tarp most of that dark and hot afternoon. This while investigators completed the investigation. The murder of LaShante Jones would go unsolved for about 10 months before the dominoes in this murder case would begin to fall. In a police investigation into possible interviews of LaShante, they would find that Miss Martinez and Mrs. Jones had several tumultuous run-ins in the past. The murder came after Martinez and people associated with her inflicted a series of violent acts on LaShante over the years, including robbery and assault of her person. Court documents indicate that in 2016, Mrs. Martinez was accused of hitting LaShante Jones, who was reportedly dating Mrs. Martinez's ex-boyfriend at that time. Martinez and Jones had known each other, investigators said. Martinez was arrested for an incident and charges with battery back in 2018 for allegedly beating up Jones. During that particular court hearing, Jones showed up to testify against Martinez in February of 2020. After the scheduled court hearing for that case at the Richard E. Gernstein Justice Building in Miami, Jones reported being held at gunpoint and robbed in a parking lot by two men, one of which was Martinez's ex-boyfriend Kelly Nelson, who is currently in jail. Now, Jones had agreed to testify against Nelson, investigators said. Nelson and another woman were facing robbery and assault charges. They were both awaiting trial. The previous years, Jones filed a police report against Martinez and claimed Martinez was harassing her to change her story about the 2020 assault. Jones, however, didn't take Martinez's advice even when she was offered money to do so. In an ongoing investigation, police officers identified the alleged shooter as an ex-convict named Javon Carter. Now imagine it was easy to build a case after arresting the suspected Javon after police did a forensic investigation of his telephone. On that device, they located where he taped an incident in his car after the murder to where he was counting the $10,000 on camera as seen here. Now, if you listen close enough, you can hear him utter the words, "Just another day at the office."
Another day in the office. Couple of loosies. Another bundle.
9 months after Jones was shot and killed, police arrested Carter and charged him with both first-degree murder and attempted murder. The attempted murder charge comes after a bullet grazed the 2-year-old daughter during the shooting. Another man identified as Ramil Robinson was also arrested in connection with the shooting. All three suspects remain behind bars. The Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office plans to push the grand jury indictment of first-degree murder for all defendants, which could possibly mean the death penalty if they're found guilty. Carter and Robinson remain in jail without bond. Martinez was arrested in St. Lucia County and was extradited to Miami's Dade jailhouse. Carter was charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder of Jones' daughter in addition to other related charges. Carter has denied any involvement in this attack. Martinez was charged with murder in connection with the indictment, wiretapping communications, 2 counts of witnesses tampering, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and first-degree murder with a deadly weapon. The victim's mother would say after her daughter's death, "I just never knew it would come to this. For her to have been murdered." She said, "My daughter never had a fight before in her life. No enemies until she met this woman." Prosecutors say that Nelson and Martinez hatched a plan to murder Jones over a series of months via jailhouse phone calls, which were recorded and used as key evidence. Now, however, Nelson has not been accused of taking part in the TSA officer's murder. In one call, Martinez allegedly said she was ready to go kill this hoe and that Jones had to die, according to alleged killer's arrest warrant. Now, police were able to connect Carter to the shooting after tracing his phone to the area where the murder took place, and said that the same phone was traced to the same area for hours-long periods on the 2 days leading up to the murder. suggesting that he was scoping out Jones's apartment. Javon Carter communicated with Martinez 127 times in the months leading up to Jones' death and spoke extensively with Robinson, with whom he served an earlier prison sentence. Now, all three used sports terms to haggle over the price of the hit, with terms numbering 10 jersey referring to the ultimate $10,000 payment. Robinson and Carter had arraignment scheduled on February 24th of this year, while Martinez is extradited from Port St. Lucie, Florida. For MNN, this is Charles. We hope you join us next time on Killer for Hire.